Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening to The Political Vigilante. And of course, the Patreon supporters, you get access to bonus content. You get the audio podcast early and a lot of other cool things. One of the things you get to do at the $5 level, there's two $5 tiers. One is the bonus audio one, but this one is the suggested topic or article. So this was submitted this month by Faye Adelstein, and it wasn't a specific article. It's basically a subject matter about medical marijuana. And there's a website, thesacredplant.com, and there's a docu-series. It was out there. It was free for a little bit, but you can subscribe to that if you want. I guess I'll put the link in the show notes if you want to get more information on the subject. So what I've talked about this a lot. I think we should legalize marijuana. Tulsi Gabbard has talked about decriminalizing on a federal level. And I think overall it's a very worthwhile thing. And I think what I like about what Faye Adelstein suggested, and thank you so much for supporting the show and suggest this is such a cool, this is why I love doing this show, because it's we're going to go into a little more detail about legalization of medical marijuana and what infrastructure should be put in place. And so it's not just I'm for it, I'm against it. Let's go into more detail. Let's unpack what the legalizing of it would mean on a medical level and what needs to be put in place. And this is, I'll read you some of the stuff that Faye wrote. Is what, I'll just read what she said. Is they, obviously Faye thinks that medical marijuana should be legalized, as I concur, and talks a little bit about this documentary. So here's this point. What they do not address in this film is a heavy recreational use of cannabis, which I think could be seen as unmeasured self-medicating. If people understood the medical applications of cannabis better, they might come into a better and more balanced relationship with the plant. Also, one big problem is that black market cannabis has been bred to make people high THC content. And while THC is known to have great medical properties, good for pain and insomnia, there are so many other components in cannabis that have medical qualities. It is imperative we remove the negative stigma associated with the use of this plant. We all need to recognize that for many conditions, it is far better medicine than most pharmaceutical drugs. The docu-series also briefly covers how it became a controlled substance and why modern pharma benefits from the false association of cannabis or criminal irresponsible behavior. Let's talk about that real quick. So the big pharma and the medical has demonized cannabis. So this started actually back, Reefer Madness, I think, came out in the 30s or 40s. And so, it makes you crazy. They've used a lot of racist tactics, like, marijuana is bad. It's a jazz cigarette, meaning blacks use it. Ooh, it's a black drug or whatever, another tactic to scare white people. And what Faye is talking about here and what I want to address is how if medical marijuana needs to be legalized, we then need the medical community to understand the research and how it's prescribed. Because you can't just say, marijuana is good for anxiety, or it's good for this, or it's good for that, and then not have a medical professional understanding how it works and the dosage and all that other stuff. Because what is happening a lot, and Faye talks about this, and I've seen this myself, is some people out there that have maybe social anxiety or whatever are just self-medicating with, buying just regular old weed or even the edibles, and it's not addressing the overall issue. Now, like anything, it can have negative effects, and just because there are some negative effects, or if it's misdiagnosed or mistreated or misused, doesn't mean that it should be criminalized, in my opinion. But again, we need to, if we're going to really look at medical marijuana, at cannabis as a thing that can help with a lot of issues, then we got to go in and use the proper research, because if people are just self-medicating, that can be problematic. and people can get hooked on marijuana. My understanding is you can't really get physically addicted to it like you can cocaine or alcohol or nicotine, but you can get psychologically addicted to it. But I'm sure if people, Faye talks about a friend that used a lot of it to help with social anxiety and then went off of it and then, committed suicide, which is awful. And that's the thing, and I think this is, if I understand Faye's point correctly, which I agree with, is like, so there's a stigma about being on it all the time. Oh, you're a slacker, you're a dumb stoner or whatever. But then if it's not researched and regulated, and you put like a physician would say, take this medication to deal with your PTSD or your whatever, then if you just cold turkey it, anything, it can be really hard. Cold turkey and caffeine or sugar can be it can be difficult. So the thing I want to address here, let me read you this about this docu-series. If you so want to pay for it, I guess you can. This series really opened my mind, this is Faye's mind, to the research out there in terms of just what a wide range of conditions cannabis has been successful in treating. And it really is a powerhouse medicine. It addresses how oftentimes people are manipulated by fear when considering important choices about their own health care and that of those closest to them. Though is not a specific article, this topic is huge as it confronts many issues of individual choice. The more people are informed with the truth, the easier it will be to get good help when they are sick. So the other thing is, I would add that there is also a different conversation to be had about the negative aspects of legalizing cannabis. No doubt there are issues and potential problems with that. I do not have a lot of info on that. For medical use, people need access to pharma-grade cannabis that is tested and confirmed to have no contaminants, pesticides, insecticides, mold, etc. Because that's the other thing. People just say medical marijuana. Where is it grown? What aspects of this? So I think what Faye is saying, and that I very much concur with, is yes, I want to legalize marijuana across the board. We've talked about, from the criminal side, there's people in prison for a plant, which is ridiculous. And, black people are 3 times more likely to go to jail for being busted for weed than a white kid is. So it would help our court system. But just legalizing it, we have to understand that, as anything, people can get dependent upon it. It can be, if you do too much of it, people can use it to just check out. If you're dealing with tough emotional problems, or you suffered from abuse or whatever, it can be a thing that people just check out with. People can check out with their phones. I mean, a dopamine is released whenever you're on your phone. Some people, it's just don't want to face, and facing issues or yourself. I know when I stopped drinking 15 years ago, the toughest part was I had to face myself. And I know now there was some pain and some trauma and stuff that I wasn't dealing with, and I had a lot of anger, and alcohol was a great mask for that. And I had to also take responsibility for some of my behavior. So that can happen if you just sit around and smoke weed all day, every day. It can have an effect on you. So I think the point here is, it should be legalized, and we need as much research as possible. Let's put the research into it that is put into other medications. I mean, I know the FDA, it's kind of hard to trust the FDA sometimes, because the pharmaceutical companies definitely have influence over the FDA. And big pharmaceutical companies are trying to block medical marijuana. But then the question here is, what happens if big pharmaceutical says, yeah, okay, and then big pharma starts buying medical, they buy pot farms and they start using it. Well then, all right, then it still needs to be regulated. It still needs to be checked to make sure it doesn't have a bunch of nonsense in it. We still need to do research and clinical trials about how it can work and how it can help all of the things that it claims to help, which it can help with many, many things, and anxiety, and I know a lot of vets who were like, the VA just wanted to pump me full of pharmaceutical drugs, and medical marijuana has really helped manage my PTSD. So let's legalize it, and let's put more research into it, and let's not demonize it nor recklessly use it just because now it's legal, you know. And let's, if you are pro medical marijuana, pro legalization of recreational marijuana, which again I'm for, don't be then closed off to anybody saying, well, now these issues can come up. Let's get some research out of Colorado. I know they've made a lot of money in Colorado. I'm actually excited about the potential tax revenue that the state of California is going to get since beginning January 1, 2018, recreational marijuana will be legal in the state of California, and there's going to be, I'm in favor of that, and taxing it and using that tax money to help build the infrastructure in schools and all that other stuff. So, but let's also, if we are pro-weed, be open to, hey, there could be some negative things that have come out to legalizing it, and how do we address those? Not just, and oh, make it criminal again, because we know criminalizing it doesn't work. It puts people in prisons like we already talked about. So I'm curious to hear your guys' discussion on this and what your comments are. And if anyone wants to talk about this on one of the super chats, that'd be cool. And Faye Adelstein, thank you so much for this. What a great subject and to talk about and unpack. I love taking a subject and really getting into the meat of it, because as we talk about on this show, everything isn't, the mainstream media wants to tell you it's just black and white. It's for, against, it's red state, blue state. And it's never that simple. You know, even in wanting to legalize marijuana, there's issues we need to discuss and look at and talk about as a culture, as a society, and have regulation and everything else. So thank you so much for watching this show. Faye Adelstein, thank you for supporting. If you want to become a Patreon backer, go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood. The link is below. And like and subscribe. When you subscribe to these videos, YouTube has tried to might just unsubscribe you without you knowing, because they don't want you listening to progressives. So make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell notification, and thank you for watching the show.